I'm going to demonstrate a hybrid storage policy. What is a hybrid policy? Well, in version 7.5.1 of HyperStore, Cloudian released a feature that allows for replicating or erasure coding of objects within the same storage policy. If you've already completed Cloudian certified training, then you'll be aware that for large objects, erasure coding is a more storage space efficient means for ensuring data availability and durability than replication. But for smaller objects, when all things are considered, capacity consumption for object data and metadata, as well as object read and write performance, replication is the superior data protection method. I'm going to create the hybrid policy via the Cloudian Management Console, and because I need to log in and out a number of times, I've enabled our View User Data feature. This allows the admin account or group admin account to act on behalf of another HyperStore storage user. I navigate to the Cloudian Management Console URL, and I must make sure that the group name is correct for the user account I'm logging in as, in this case, admin. After successfully logging into the CMC, I'll be shown the dashboard, which presents a high-level view of the cluster. Firstly, I navigate to the cluster menu and then the storage policy sub-menu. We can see there's already a storage policy on the system. The default policy in this case offers replication factor 3. We need to create a new storage policy. The policy name I'll call EC32 Hybrid, fairly descriptive I think, and then the description, a bit more information. So why didn't we just modify the existing policy? Well, we can't. Once we create a policy, the protection methodology is fixed for that policy. This cluster only has a single region and data center, so our options are going to be limited. We have 5 nodes. If I try to select an erasure coding policy that requires a greater number of nodes, I'm going to get an error message. Scrolling down the screen, we can see that the hybrid policy threshold defaults to 200 kilobytes. For the lab exercise here, I'm going to reduce this down to 32 kilobytes. Finally, we save the policy. After confirming success, the screen should refresh and our new policy should be displayed. Do take note of the number of replicas. An erasure coding policy is one replica which has been fragmented and is able to tolerate failure through additional parity fragments, each fragment being stored on a different node. As this cluster has the View User Data feature enabled, we will now act on behalf of a particular HyperStore user whilst remaining logged in as the system admin. This allows us to test the configuration setting without needing to log in as that specific user. Buckets, like storage policies, cannot have their protection policy amended after creation, so I need to create a bucket using the newly created hybrid policy. I'm going to give it a name which is easily identifiable, and in this case I need to make sure that I select the correct storage policy. Having created the bucket, we need to test it. So we're going to add a couple of files to the bucket. One greater in size than the threshold setting, and the other slightly less than. What we expect to happen to the object larger than our threshold of 32 kilobytes is for it to be protected by erasure coding using, in this case, EC3+2 within a single data center. So we should have 5 fragments in total stored in the HyperStore. Our second object is at or smaller than our threshold, so will be protected by replication rather than erasure coding. We should test this theory to ensure the policy is correct. Staying logged in as admin, we select the Analytics menu and Object Locator. We need to input the bucket name. In this case, we used my hybrid bucket. And we need the object name we wish to locate. Let's start with the 50K object. As we haven't enabled versioning on this bucket, we can ignore that and just hit return and let the system search for the object. In this case, it's found it fairly quickly. We can see that it is an erasure coded object and all 5 of the fragments have been identified. We can see the file path also includes EC for erasure coding. If you've already completed Cloudian certified training, then hopefully you still remember what the different segments of the full path represent. Let's compare this output to the output from our 5K file, which, if you remember, is equal to or smaller than our threshold. Once the object's been located, we should see that it's been protected by replication rather than erasure coding, so there should only be 3 replicas within the system. We can see the node and full path to each instance or replica of our object. In this demonstration, we selected a non-default setting for the threshold as an example of what's possible. The 200 kilobyte default value is based on testing to determine the approximate object size threshold above which erasure coding tends to deliver a better overall combination of resource utilization efficiency and performance, and below which replication is better. But as we saw, there are various alternative hybrid policy threshold values, including a disabled option. If you set the hybrid policy threshold to disabled, then this storage policy will apply erasure coding to all objects, no matter how small. In most environments and with most types of workloads, it's beneficial to use the hybrid policy threshold feature. If you're considering disabling the threshold for a storage policy, you should first consult with Cloudian support or your assigned Cloudian solutions architect. If we need more details on this or any other HyperStore process, open the help files from the relevant screen in the CMC to be directed to the correct help section.